to be sent to the concentration camp would destroy them. And he is wrapping him up, and then he is telling his father, said, "Grandpa, I'm gonna dump him in the outhouse, in the toilet." And Grandpa, his name was Wolf, I never met him either, and he said, "Ben, what are you doing? You're gonna dump your guns, and your guns," and it was 29, "and then they will come and arrest you." And my grandfather said to his grandfather, "Don't be silly, I was fighting for this revolution. It's not gonna happen, I was fighting for Comrade Stalin." And he dumped the guns in the toilet, so they were gone. And here we go, 1934, 5 years later, 3 o'clock in the morning, there was a loud banging on the door. So his wife is opening the door. There are 2 NKVD officers in 2 long leather coats telling my grandfather to get his little things, and then he was taken away like millions of others who did not have a chance to protect himself in this situation. He didn't have a gun, he didn't have a rifle. Those 2 guys, police officers or political police officers, did have a sidearms or side weapons. He didn't. They took him away, they sent him to Siberia for 2 years, then they resent him back to Minsk, where he was tried in the KGB court for 10 minutes without public defender. He was found guilty on the charge of digging the tunnel under the Kremlin War with the purpose to kill Comrade Stalin. My father lives in Minsk, which is 1,000 kilometers away from Moscow. So it was totally absurd charge. He was found guilty, and he was supposed to be executed within 3 hours, and he got shot with many others who were accused of the same crime they never committed, and they were shot like hundreds of thousands Minsk residents in the suburbs of the Minsk. The government built a huge fence so people couldn't see it, a huge territory. They dug massive graves. They brought submachine guns. And people who are still alive and live in Minsk, they're telling the story that those submachine guns were running from early in the morning until late at night. And probably between 800,000 to 1 million people died in the suburbs of Minsk. So you can compare this to Hitler did similar thing, tyranny. Stalin did similar thing, tyranny. I mean, total suppression of people's mind and annihilation of the people, and using people in the concentration camp as a main force of labor. So when Soviets were bragging about the development of their economy, it was only because of the millions of people, maybe 30 million, who were working in the concentration camp. So what is happening here, I see, is very similar. You probably heard the famous Chinese expression, it's called death by 1,000 cuts. What Obama and his gang, and I call them a real gang, and I'm talking about David Axelrod, I'm talking about Valerie Jarrett. There are people behind the scenes. They are really evil-minded. They are pro-socialism, pro-communist leaders of Obama administration. They are planning, they have steps how to demilitarize the United States. And when the country became demilitarized, the population is becoming vulnerable. And that's what I see is in the workings. I'm writing now our Senator Dianne Feinstein on a daily basis, exchanging letters with her. And my recent one was, Mrs. Feinstein, I wrote, are you aware as a Jewish that majority of the Jews in Warsaw ghetto, were actually exterminated because they didn't have guns, because Germans took the guns away. And Jews would have the guns, they would probably put some sort of a resistance. And they finally managed to get some guns, and there was a Warsaw resistance. And they killed quite a few Germans, the German SS and the German army too. So Germans were very surprised, but it was too late already. Most of the Jews were by that time, and the Warsaw ghetto was already at the state of collapsing from diseases, from hunger. But so And she writes me, well, I respectfully read your information, but it's not the case. America is not going to become another Warsaw. Your comparison with the Soviet Union is not quite rational. And I write her back, well, the things will become, it's incremental implementation. First you start with the guns, then you start controlling the speech, then you will say anything that can be said or criticize the government or president of this country. I already hear something like that is happening. That's how the incremental death of the freedom and the free society is actually happening. And it's very troubling. I start my day, I guess, listening to few radio stations, hardly any news. And I listen all day when I have time to the very late, and I feel so much anger and so frustration, and I was going to tell you why. Because I feel like it is actually happening. That Obama is, by the way, of his executive orders, is very persistent. He has really bad intentions about us and about this country. His intentions to turn our country into a third world country. He is aligned with the worst leaders in the world, like Vladimir Putin, who elected himself for the third time against their constitution. So there is a little something to think about it. Why, if Putin did it, why should Obama wouldn't do it? I mean, he will have all political power and all media, and mostly probably 55% of the population will go and say, well, we need to give this guy a little more time. He will just accomplish what he wants to accomplish. Let's just give him more time. So at the end of the day, I just get so exhausted and then, hopeless in many ways. Maybe because I just don't socialize with more positive people, but I think there's a big chance that we will become a united socialist state of America, and that would be something that we need to prevent from happening. Thanks, Tim. And regarding if you hear something about, the food was so cheap in the Soviet Union, it was so available. I spent literally years of my college years going into lines at 2 o'clock in the morning. My mom was telling me, get up, go on the butter line. So you go down to the store in the butter line, and there's somebody already there with the numbers, so you're the next one. So I write down my number on my hand, and I will wait for the next person. So next day at 6 o'clock, whoever wants to get a receipt, who wants to get a little package of butter, has to be there with those numbers. And then government delivers 200 or 300 packages of 8-ounce packages of butter. And that's how we live. You want to get your milk? Right after school, get your tin can and stay in a line of 160 women probably, and school children, and pray that you will have enough, they will have enough government milk in the store. I have few entrepreneurial friends back in Russia who wanted to run their own businesses. It didn't happen because government actually controlled every business. And how did they do it? If you start your business and they find you, they confiscate all the equipment, all the money, and basically the owner would be sent to jail. So that's how government was omnipotent or present everywhere. Every job was a government job. Every apartment was a government apartment. So if you're loyal to the government, you get a job. You show just one sign of disloyalty or questioning the government, you're gonna lose the job, you're gonna lose the flat, you're gonna end up on the street. And that was at the same time they were saying the Soviet people were the happiest people in the world. They guaranteed free healthcare, free education, 24 days of vacation, paid vacation. The pay was so ludicrous you can't even leave your town, and you have to have your passport to travel within the country, and you're not allowed even to go and see the countries beyond the borders of the Soviet Union. Speaking about the borders, like I hear that quite often, I'm about to be done, that American borders cannot be secured. Russians were secured their borders for probably 60 or 70 years, And it was so efficient, nothing can go through. Nothing could go through these borders. There were minefields, there were submachine gun run points where 2 border patrol guys were there all the time, and they shoot you if they would shoot me if I would try to leave the country, or they would shoot anybody trying to get into the country. So that's how they control the border. So they didn't have any immigration or immigration problems. So when I say we can secure the border in a more humane way, with maybe without submachine guns, but it's totally doable. And when Janet Napolitano is saying that the borders are secure, I really don't trust that lady. It's just like I listened to her and I said, well, it sounds like she's lying. And most of them are actually lying. And that group, you know, the group of advisors of Mr. Obama, they call them czars. How many of them there? 100? Making maybe $200,000 a year, $250,000 a year. I gave him a name, Commie Czar.